A very good morning to my dear 10th standard students. This is our history class, and today we shall begin with a new chapter: Historiography, Indian Tradition. Before we go ahead with the chapter, let us do a recap of the previous chapter which we studied. What did we do in the first chapter? We studied about the development in the West, the historiography development in the West. We also studied about the contribution of Western scholars in the development of historiography: Karl Marx, Voltaire, René Descartes, and so many. Now it's time to know about the tradition of Indian historiography. The tradition of Indian historiography. It is been classified in three parts. The first one is the ancient period, the second one is the medieval period, and the third one is the modern period. Today, children, we will be studying each and every period in detail. Let us now start with the first one, that is historiography in the ancient period. Ancient period. Children, we all have studied that in the past, the information and the messages were passed on from one person to another through orally. So, oral recitals were one of the oral sources through which historiography or history of the past was conveyed to one person to another person. The mythological lores, that is, the mythological stories, the deeds of the ancestors, the work done by our ancestors, and the memories of social transition. The memories of social transition means throughout the time, so many changes have taken place in the society. So, all these changes were told to one person to another person with the help of oral sources. Then, children, material sources were given importance: the seals and the artifacts. The inscription on the seals and the artifacts were given importance during the period of Emperor Ashoka Maurya. Children, you all remember Emperor Ashoka, when he wanted to pass on information, what did he do? He wrote something on some artifacts and seals, and they were placed on different parts of the village. And the people came there and read and came to know what the king wanted to tell. The edicts inscribed on natural rocks and stone pillars are also example of the material sources. Then in the 1st century CE, inscription began to occur on copper plates, coins, metal images, sculptures, and so on. What information were these inscriptions given to the people? These inscriptions provided important historical information. What did we come to know? We get to know about the dates of the kings and their dynasty, the territorial extent and their administration. How long did they rule at that particular place? What were their territorial extent? Then political events throughout their rule. What all things happened in their rule politically? The climate, and so many. All such information we get to know with the help of inscriptions. Then a time came when people started writing, that is Indian literature. So the ancient Indian literature includes the epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Purans, the Jainism and Buddhist text, and even the travelogue. Travelogue is also very important, children, because travelogue is a thing which includes information of what all things happened to that person while he was traveling from one place to another. So this is also a collection of the past. Then we come to biography. What is biography? Once again, I would like to tell you what is biography. Biography is writing about your own self. So, writing of biographies about the king and their dynastic history, about what all things happened when they were ruling at that particular period, that is, dynastic histories. All this mark an important step in the Indian historiography. Harsha Charita. It is a biography of King Harsha, which was written by Banabhatta. It portrays the social, the economic, the political, and the religious, and even the cultural life during King Harsha's time. So, Harsha Charita is a book which was written by Banabhatta, and this is the biography of King Harsha. What is included in this book? In this book, all the events happened during the time of King Harsha while he was ruling at that particular period. Each and every information is written in this book. Now we move on to the next section, that is the second one, historiography in the medieval period. The Kalhanas, that is Raj Tarangini. This book is the history of Kashmir. He wrote this book after critically examining the sources such as the inscriptions, the coins, the remains of ancient monuments, the dynastic records, and the local tradition of that particular time. So again, this is one of the book which was written by Kalhana, and this book name is Raj Tarangini. And what is the book containing? The book talks about the history of Kashmir, and this book is quite related to the concept of modern historiography. Now children, what was happening during the medieval period? In the medieval period, we all know that the Mughal rulers were ruling us. So under the Mughal rule, our historians, they were influenced by two things. What was that? By Arabic historiography and Persian historiography. During this time, Ziadun Barani, Ziadun Barani holds a very important place in the medieval part of historiography. Why? Because he had written a book, and the book name was Tariq-e-Firozi Shahi. In this book, he has written a very important thing. What was that? The purpose of historiography. He wrote in this book why there is need to write history. He also mentioned very important thing. What was that? According to him, the historian's duty is not only limited to to write about the recording of the rulers, valor and policy of welfare. Not only good things must be written about the ruler. He said that the history also should mention about the ruler's failing and incorrect policy. So he says that we must not only write about the great deeds of the king, what he did, but also we must mention that what were the incorrect policies which they did in their time, what were their failings, when time they failed, how did they overcome their failures. All such things should be mentioned in historiography. And that is why one more thing he mentioned, that the history or the historiography should also be mentioning the impact of teachings of the wise, the learned, and the saints on the cultural life of the people. What did he say? That during that particular time there were many wise men, learned men, saints, even they were there. All these people were trying to teach the common man. So history must also mention about all these people. What was the impact of the teachings of these people on the common man? And because of all these things, Barani expanded the scope of historiography. All such new things he added in the field of historiography. Once again, I say that Barani, in his book, that is Tariq-e-Firoz Shahi, said that he wrote in this book the purpose of historiography, and he said that we should not only mention the great deeds of the rulers, but also we should write about the different incorrect policies which the kings made at those times, and how did they fail, how many times they failed, after failing how did they overcome. All such things must be mentioned in historiography. He also said that in that particular time there were many wise men, learned, and the saints present. So all these people were trying to teach good things to the common man. So what was the impact of their teaching? Even all these things must be mentioned in historiography, and that is why the scope of historiography were expanded. Is that very clear? Now we come to Babur. Who was Babur? He was the Mughal. He was the founder of the Mughal Empire. He wrote an autobiography, his own book, and that book was called as Tuzuke Babri. What did he write in this book? Let us see that. Babur, in his book, described the different battles he fought and even recorded his minute observation. Babur, whatever in his book, what did he write? The descriptions of the battles. So many battles he fought during his empire. So that time, how did he face those battles? What were the result of that? How was it going on? Each and everything he minutely wrote in his autobiography. We also have Abul Fazl, who wrote Akbarnama. Even his book is very important. Now we move on to Bakr. What is Bakr? Let us study that. Bakr is an important type of historical documents of medieval times. Now, what is Bakr? Bakr is something. It contains eulogies of the heroes. Eulogies means a part of writing that is praising someone or a tribute to the person who have already passed away. Okay, so Bakr is a writing which is talking about the heroes, which is a tribute to the heroes or praising the heroes, and even talking about the stories of historic events, the battles, the lives of the great men. Now, Bakr, let us study about the Marathi Bakr. The Marathi Bakr are of various types. First, let us study about Sabasad Bakr. What is Sabasad Bakr? Sabasad Bakr was written by Krishnaji Anand Sabhasad during the reign of Chhatrapati Rajaram Maharaj. But what is the information passed on in his Bakar? It is an important Bakar for getting information about the rule of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So Sabhasad Bakar wrote Krishnaji Anand Sabhasad wrote Bakar, and that was Sabhasad Bakar, and in this book he gave information about the rule of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Then we have the Holkaranchi Kafiyat. Now, what is this? It is something talking about Holkars and their contribution to the Maratha rule. Then you have Bausahebanची Bakr and Panipatachi Bakr. Both the Bakrs talk about the Battle of Panipat. All these three Bakrs are very important in Marathi literature. After doing the medieval period, now it's time to learn about the historiography in the modern period. That is the third part. In the 20th century, something was happening in the world. What was that? Archaeological excavation and research was going on. All this was happening under the British rule. Remember, we were the colonies of the Britishers. So, during this time, what was happening? As I said, archaeological exploration or excavation was happening. So, a number of sites were excavated under the supervision of Sir Alexander Cunningham. He was the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. And even the Harappan civilization took place. This was discovered by Sir John Marshall. Now, children, many British officials in India wrote about Indian history. Let us learn about them. James Mill, he wrote the book The History of India. This book is the first book on Indian history written by a British historian. Then you also have The History of India, which was written by Mount Stewart Elphinstone. Period of Maratha Empire, very important in Indian history. Why is this period so important? Grandaf. Grandaf's name stands out among the British officer who wrote about Maratha history. Yes, he wrote a book and the book was named as A History of Marathas. This book was published in 3 volumes. This book shows the British inclination of condemning Indian culture and history. Yes, children, in this book, Grandaf condemned Indian culture and history, criticized Indian culture and history. Now, why did he condemn Indian culture and history? Obviously, because they were ruling our country. So they will not, they will not, you know, what you can say, they will not say that Indian history, Indian culture is good. They will always write in such a way that they are making our culture good. So, all these things were written by Grandaf in his book, A History of Marathas. But there were two people, two Indian historians who took up the task of exposing the limitation of his writing. They said, no, whatever you are writing is wrong. And they were Neelkant Janardhan Kirtan and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade. They strongly opposed Grandaf's writing and they said that you cannot criticize our Indian culture and history. Thank you, children. This is what about the Indian historiography, which was divided into 3 parts, that is the ancient period, the medieval period, and the modern period. Whatever doubts you are having, please write it down. Inshallah, when we meet, I will clarify each and every doubt. In the next part of this chapter, we will be studying ahead of the chapter, that is, there are more things which are to be covered in this chapter. We will be doing it in our next class. Thank you. Take care.